8 years on the same deck, and Captain Joris Mell could read his ship the way a man reads his own heartbeat, which was how he knew, the moment the bell rang at the changing of the dawn watch, that the wrongness in the air was fire and not weather. He came up the companion before the second strike of the bell. The north wind was steady under his boots, and the sky to the east was the color of a thin scab, but a thread of gray was lifting from the mainmast crosstrees, and the lookout in the foretop was already shouting it down. "Fire in the main rigging, Captain." Above the topsail yard, spreading. "Hands aloft," Mel said, not loudly. "Boatswain, douse parties to the main shrouds. Mr. Vey, I want the spritsail wetted now, and every spare bucket at the foot of the mast. Tell the carpenter I want the powder room sealed, and a man at every hatch. Move." The north wind had 8 years of Captain Mel in her plank and her cordage. She was 60 paces of seasoned oak and 114 soles, and she went from rest to running like a horse her rider knew. Bare feet hit the wet planks. The boatswain's whistle cut twice. Bucket lines formed. Hands went up the windward shrouds with axes and oilskin pads. Above them all, the tar in a length of the main shrouds had ignited and was eating its way upward in a soft, hungry blue. This was the morning Captain Mel was going to have to give an order he had hoped never to give in 8 years of command. The North Wind was the third ship of a coronation envoy, a sloop-of-war, 18 guns, a packet-hold of letters, and a small velvet case carrying the Lady Idony of Carn, named by the crown of Aralwan as bride presumptive to the Prince Regent of neighboring Villeneuve. The marriage was to be sworn at the coronation in 22 days. The North Wind's task was to bring her from Saltmere to Caervilsane, a fortnight through the Three Sisters, a chain of pirate-thick shallows that had taken 31 ships of the realm in 12 years. 5 days out, Mel had picked up the masts on the horizon, 3 of them, no banners, hull down and patient. They had been with the convoy for 3 days. They were waiting for one of the 3 to fall behind. The fire had not started on its own. Mel knew that before he was halfway up the ladder. He smelled whale oil on the second breath, laid into the tarred cordage above the top, the slow match bedded into frayed sennet, so that any man looking up would have seen old work, not new. Someone aboard had been bought. Someone aboard was watching them now from the deck, waiting for the smoke column to rise high enough that the 3 masts on the horizon would know it was time. He kept his face still. 8 years on his own, quarterdeck had taught Joris Mel that the worst thing a captain could do, in front of his own people, was let his face change first. "Mr. Vey." "Captain, you will take halt in the watch and find me the man who put oil in my shrouds. You will be quiet about it. You will not search. You will watch faces. The man who put it there is on this deck right now, and he is watching for one of 2 things, for the fire to take, or for us to start running. Show him neither. Find him." Vey did not blink. Vey had been his first lieutenant for 6 of the 8 years. "Aye, Captain." The bucket chain reached the foot of the mainmast. Seawater hit the lower shrouds and ran down. 2 hands were in the top, one with an axe, one with a wet sack across his shoulder for the climb above. The fire was 40 feet up and eating toward the topgallant, toward where a single sheet of sailcloth, once it caught, would carry the burn across to the mizzen in less than 2 minutes. "Mr. Karen, cut the topgallant free if it reaches the yard. Don't wait for my second order. Don't lose me a man in the cutting. They are worth more than the sail." "Aye, sir." Mel looked once at the smoke, once at the eastern sky, and once down the deck at his 114 souls, doing what they had been trained to do without being told twice, and he knew exactly how the next 30 minutes were going to go if the wind did not turn. He went down the companion to the great cabin. He knocked once on the inner door. The Lady Idony of Carne was 26, plain-faced and quick-eyed, and she opened the door herself in a traveling cloak, with her hair already pinned, because she had heard the bell and the bucket chain, and she had not been a child for a long time. "Captain Mel, my lady, there is a fire in the main rigging. We have it in hand. There are 3 sails to the east that are not friendly. I have to ask you something, and I have to ask it once." "Ask. If the choice comes to it, if the North Wind cannot run them, I will set you in the longboat with 8 men under Mr. Karen in a sealed bag, and I will turn this ship across their bow and give them a quarter of an hour of my 18 guns while you go south for the second escort. I need to know that you will get in that boat when I tell you, and that you will not argue with my mate. And you? I will stay with my ship, my lady." She looked at him for one breath. "How long have these men sailed with you, Captain?" 8 years, most of them, some longer. "Then I will get in the boat when you tell me. And I will not argue with your mate. And I will say at the coronation what was done here, and by whom." "Thank you, my lady." He turned back up the companion and past 3 men, whose names he could say with his eyes closed. Old Bren at the powder room hatch, Sennel at the pump handle, The cook's boy Tam, 14, carrying buckets up the windward side because nobody had told him to stop. 8 years. He had buried 4 men out of his crew. He had taught half the topmen to read out of the canvas-bound book of Psalms that lived in his sea chest. He could tell, from the way a hand pulled at a halyard, whether his wife was sick at home. He looked at the smoke at the masthead and made the calculation he had been refusing to make, and saw that the wind was not going to turn. "Mr. Vey, Captain, have you found him?" "Aye, Captain. Quartermaster Stryker. Came aboard at Saltmere with the new draft. He's in the chain locker with a kerchief of silver that is not the coin of Arlwen. He will hang at Caervilsane by my own warrant. Put 2 on him and forget him. One of those sails is coming up faster than the other 2. They mean to take us one at a time. I will not give them the choice." He climbed to the quarterdeck. He looked at the helmsman. The helmsman was old Pell, 53 years old, who had been at the wheel of the North Wind for every league of those 8 years, and who knew the ship's mind better than Mel did. "Pell, Captain, we will not run." Pell did not move his eyes off the binnacle. "No, Captain. We will put Lady Adoni into the longboat under Karen, and we will send her south to the second escort. The Larkrise can take her into Velsane. And then we will turn across the bow of the lead ship coming up out of the east, and we will hold them for a quarter of an hour." "A quarter of an hour, Captain. It is enough for her to get the boat under the second escort's lee. After that the North Wind will do what the North Wind can do." "Aye, Captain." The smoke at the masthead paused and began to gray down. The bucket chain was winning. He heard Karen's axe and tarred cord, and a slow falling roar as a length of charred shroud, and topgallant came free and dropped past the lee rail into the sea. The North Wind drank the loss and kept moving. 8 minutes from bell to black smoke gone, with not a man burned worse than a scorched palm. He could have wept for that crew. He did not. He set his hand on the rail and gave the orders. "Beat to quarters. Run out the larboard battery. Mr. Karen, the longboat, the lady, 8 men, the south course. Mr. Vey, the helm answers to me from this minute on. Pell, when I say up helm, you put us across the bow of the lead chaser and you hold us there with the wind on our beam. If we lose the foreyard, we will fight from the main. If we lose the main, we will fight from the deck. If we lose the deck, we will fight from the rail. We will not strike." There was a small silence on the quarterdeck of the kind that happens when men understand a thing all at once. Vey said, "Aye, Captain." The boatswain's whistle cut across the deck, and the drum took it up, and the North Wind became, in 40 seconds, a ship of war. The longboat went down the lee side. The lady went into it without looking back. Karen sat in the stern with the sealed bag across his knees and 8 of Mel's best at the oars, and the boat dropped astern in the swell and turned south for the Larkrise, 3 miles off and already coming up. The lead chaser was inside a mile by then. She was a sloop, raked low, painted black at the waterline, no banners. The 2 behind her were standing off. They had decided which ship was theirs. Mel looked at his deck. 104 souls left aboard. Old Bren at the powder hatch, the cook's boy now at the magazine, Sennel at the pump. The top of the foreyard was Calder, 6 years aboard, married to the harbour master's daughter at Saltmere. The maintop was Joss. The chains was Reeve. He could say all of it. Eyes closed. "Mr. Vey, Captain, tell them what they already know. Then tell them what I am going to do." Vey did not need the message twice. He went forward, and the drum stopped, and Vey stood on the break of the quarterdeck, and he said, in the voice a first lieutenant uses when his captain has told him to be plain, "The captain says we will not run. The captain says we will hold this ship across that sloop's bow for a quarter of an hour while the lady goes south under Coron. The captain says after the quarter of an hour the North Wind will do what the North Wind can do. The captain says he is not going to lie to you. The captain says he has sailed with most of you for 8 years, and he would not ask any of you to do this for any other thing. He is asking for the lady. He is asking for the realm. He is asking for the ship. He is asking—" There was a silence then on the deck of the North Wind that had nothing of fear in it. It had the quality of a man's hand, closing on a hilt he has known for a long time. Old Bren, at the powder room hatch, set his palm flat on the bar. Sennel, at the pump, nodded once. Calder, at the foreyard, touched his cap. The cook's boy, 14 years old, did not move at all, because he had already decided where he stood when he carried his first bucket up the windward side. The crew did not cheer. They had not cheered for 8 years. They went to their guns. "Up helm," Mel said. Pell put them across the bow of the lead chaser with the cleanness of a man laying down a tool. The North Wind came around. The larboard battery ran out. Mel watched the black sloop come into the arc of his 9 larboard guns. The other 2 chasers were still off and behind. He had a quarter of an hour, and he meant to use every second of it. "On the uproll, Mr. Vey." "On the uproll, Captain." The north wind rose. The first broadside went out of her at the height of the swell, and it took the lead chaser at the foremast step and across the bow planking, and the chaser yawed and went down at the head, and her foremast came over the side in a tangle of rigging and torn canvas, and her 2 consorts checked their canvas and turned a point off the wind, because they had not expected the small one to turn. He held them for the quarter of an hour. He held them for 20 minutes more. The north wind took a hole at the waterline forward, lost the foreyard at the slings, had 3 guns dismounted on the larboard side, and 4 men down. At the end of 40 minutes, a topsail came up out of the southern haze, with the Arrowwen ensign at her main, and a second below her the southern squadron, sent by the second escort the moment Charon's longboat came under her lee. The 2 black sloops broke off and ran. The first was already gone under, and Mel sent the order to save the men in the water before any other order, because the North Wind was a ship of the realm and not a ship of butchery. The squadron's flag captain hailed and asked his condition. Mel answered in his own voice, with Vey beside him bleeding from a splinter cut over the eye and not noticing. "The north wind holds, sir. The lady is south under the lark rise. We have 4 down. We will need a tow at the foreyard. We are otherwise in fighting order." He went below before he let his hand shake. He sat in the great cabin in front of the small writing desk, and he took out the canvas-bound book of Psalms, and he wrote the 4 names in the back of it, with the date and the longitude and the wind, the way he had written 4 names before in 8 years. Bren, Halt, Joss, Calder. Calder, who had been married to the harbor master's daughter at Saltmere. Mel would carry the news himself when they made port. He closed the book. He went back up the companion. The deck was already clean. The wounded were below with the surgeon. The dead were laid in the lee scuppers under canvas. The carpenter was at the hole at the waterline. The boatswain was passing the word for the new foreyard. The crew did not look at him as he came up. They went on with their work. They had sailed with him for 8 years. Lady Idoni came aboard again at Caervelsane 20 days later, off the Lark Rise. She made her oath at the coronation, and she said in the open court of the Prince Regent that an Arrowwen sloop-of-war called the North Wind had held 3 pirate sails alone in the Three Sisters for an hour while she went south, that the captain had asked his crew for a quarter of an hour, and his crew had given him an hour without speaking, and that the 4 men who had died for a realm and a marriage and not for a captain's name, but that she would say the captain's name anyway, because it was Joris Mel, and because the North Wind, in 8 years, had been a single living thing under his hand. The Prince Regent stood up from his chair at that. He did not have to. He stood because some things, when a man hears them in open court, ask a man to stand. The realm of Velenry stood with him. The envoy of Arrowwen at the rail stood. And in the harbor, at Caervelsane, on the small quarterdeck of a battered sloop, with a new foreyard, and a freshly tarred patch at the waterline, and 110 men left of 114, Captain Mel did not know any of that, because he was below writing the 5th name in the back of his canvas-bound book of Psalms, a man named Reeve, who had lived 4 days past the action, and then had not. He put the book back in the sea-chest. He went up the companion and stood at the rail and looked at the lights of the harbor, and his crew left him to it. They had stood together for a quarter of an hour, and then for an hour, and they had given a young woman her marriage, and a realm its coronation, and the ones still on the deck were on the deck because the ones below the scuppers had been on the deck first. That was the whole of it. The boatswain's whistle went, somewhere forward, soft, the way it goes at the change of an evening watch. The North Wind answered it. She always had.